Hey everybody, Alex Miller at Capnian here. Today I'd like to talk about the data breach at the company Ubiquiti you might have heard about. Ubiquiti is a company that makes Wi-Fi enabling devices and routers of all sorts for different markets. You may have heard this has been a plot that's been thickening for almost a year now, and it's had some pretty exciting twists and turns. So, two things I'd like to emphasize about this story. One, this is a great kind of spy versus spy story, and I think it's really cool. Please take everything with a grain of salt because what's been in the media about this story has been wrong in the past. The fellow I'm going to talk about is only alleged to have committed this crime. But it's a good story, and probably the lessons you can take away from it are good, regardless of whatever I present here is 100% true. I also want to say this is very near and dear to my heart. The kind of work that Capnian does is all about, do you really need to give people as much access to data as you do in order for them to do their job? And you can see in this story that it's sort of inevitable. This is a story about an inside job. If you give people lots of access, there's a lot of downside risk attached to that. If you've come this far, please like the video. Okay, so what happened? Because this is sort of an onion layer story, I'm going to start by telling a story of what happened in the news about Ubiquiti over the past year. So almost a year ago in January, Ubiquiti detected unauthorized data exfiltration. They made an announcement about this this past January saying we lost XYZ data. In March, it was widely reported that this whistleblower had come forward. The whistleblower alleged that Ubiquiti had done this big cover up, that they had not even been able to figure out the extent of the damage due to past negligent cybersecurity practices. And it's noteworthy that this is exactly what will get you clobbered in court. At one point in time, there had been various ransom demands from a purported attacker saying, send me, and I read different numbers, 25 or 50 Bitcoin, or I'm going to tell everybody about this bad situation you're in and release all this data. After this series of suspiciously ugly revelations from this whistleblower, Ubiquiti's stock went down about 20%. That's about $4 billion of market capitalization. So that's pretty juicy. What maybe really happened? So just this past week, there was an indictment that was unsealed. This is the story in the indictment. Last year, a high-level, essentially cloud architect type employee of Ubiquiti had decided to find another job. Before he leaves, he decides to steal a bunch of data. And because of this employee's position, its nature, and his high standing, he had a lot of access, both ability to configure their public cloud accounts. And then once this incident starts unfolding, he's actually on the incident response team inside Ubiquiti. So he knows Ubiquiti is doing this or that to try and remedy the situation and how to respond to it. So this guy's pretty smart. He's doing a lot of things to protect his identity, and he'd worked for a while. So he is alleged to be this attacker that asks for the ransom. After he didn't get the ransom, he was also the whistleblower that leaked this information about, oh, things are such a mess inside Ubiquiti. Some of the things he said were true because he had the ability to change those internal logging configurations. Both that helps him protect that he was the one that did it, and then also it helped him go to the media and say, oh, they're doing everything wrong in there, and that's why they can't handle the situation correctly. It's worth noting that some pretty high-profile media outlets kind of bit on this whistleblower story. So Brian Krebs, who some people regard as, at least among independent journalists, as kind of the gold standard in cybersecurity reporting, and is at the very least quite visible, covered this story in March. All right, so how does he get caught? This is interesting if you're a privacy conscious person. He was using a Surfshark VPN in order to handle all his communications as this mysterious attacker. A VPN, as you may know, is essentially all your internet traffic gets routed through this company who hopefully does a good job sending it all over the world. So somebody who sees you're visiting their website, they don't see your actual IP address. They see some weird IP address that's one of the octopus arms of the VPN company, and they're not supposed to be able to trace this back to you. This one was caught just, it's like in a football game and somebody dives and gets the ball carrier's shoelaces and just barely trips them. Apparently Surfshark VPN had a basically momentary outage. And in that moment, because this otherwise sophisticated attacker was not using what's called kill switch, his computer just defaulted to using his normal internet connection to do the dirt that he was doing. And in that moment, that one data point was actually what allowed the FBI to gradually unravel this plot, allegedly, and catch this guy. So once again, this is an indictment. This person has not been convicted yet. It's already obviously true that there's a couple different layers of this story. Back in March, it looked like Ubiquiti was a big jerk, and this guy was a saintly whistleblower. Maybe not the case. In any event, the lesson here is that insiders have a lot of power to do nefarious stuff. In this case, it didn't quite work out. Really succeeded in doing a lot of damage this past March. Probably that Ubiquiti didn't do all those bad things is never going to get as much press as when it was much more exciting that they did. And unfortunately, that's how the world works. And it's worth noting that this guy, he was pretty smart and just not smart enough. He could have configured his VPN a little differently, and he seems like he could have gotten away with it. Who knows? Anyway, I think that's a really cool story. I hope you enjoyed it and you got a cool, useful lesson from it as well.